Okay, let's just talk briefly about the history of Grand Central, because really that's the origination of the Minneapolis Sun. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. You're very much right. The original, because I'm not going to go back to the original, because the original is a whole another set of circumstances. Okay. But what it broke down to is me, Prince, and his cousin Charles, my sister Linda, William Dowdy, and Terry Jackson, and then as we did a few gigs, and then we had a couple of issues with some of the band members, and so we had to make some changes. And I met Morris and got Morris had been trying to get into the band. He kept telling me that he was
Morris
really
Day, so we're speaking of, right?
Right, Morris Day. Okay. Yeah, he kept telling me he's a really good drummer, and he was so great. And I tried to explain to him we already got a drummer, even though we were having issues at the time. But I said we got a drummer. He's like, well, I'm better than your drummer. I was like, oh, are you? He's like, oh, really? Yeah, you got to come hear me play. And he kept sweating me until finally, I wound up in, because Morris is a grade ahead of me. I think he's either a year or 2 years ahead of me. So when I left Lincoln and went to the Old North, Morris was already going there, and he had full access to me then. And so he was just sweating me like, dude, you got to come hear me. Yeah, you got to come hear me play. And so he trapped me in the hallway and finally got me to come to his crib. And I heard him play. And after I heard him play, I was like, okay, you're in. I got to get you to come and meet the rest of the guys, so he brought his drums over to, at the time we were rehearsing at Terry Jackson's down his basement. And I had him bring his drums down there and had Prince come down and Linda and William and had them jam. And they saw what I saw and they were like, okay. And then unfortunately, Charles came as we were having our little jam session. He was like, what's going on?
Oh, he walked into his demise, shall we say.
Yeah, so that was how that one went. But yeah, but that was the band, and then it became, Grand Central, and it was, then it was me, Morris, Prince, my sister Linda, William Dowdy, and Terry Jackson for a while.
So you really were right in the mix of that. Do you own that? I mean, do you feel you got enough credit for that, or isn't that what it's about?
It's not been what it's about. I mean, the thing is, I have to speak about it now, because now that Prince is gone, people are beginning to try to reinvent the wheel. They're telling different stories, and and I can't allow that to happen, because that's just not accurate. Yeah, it's just not, because the thing about it is the reality is beautiful. I mean, regardless, and everybody has their own perspective. But it is what it is, and there's no reason for anybody to try to, because people have been saying, oh, well, Prince was going to move in with me in my house, and, and he was going to do this and they was going to do that. And I started the band and all of this. And it's just nonsense. It's like, nobody was saying any of this stuff when Prince was alive.
Of course.
And the reality is I've been saying the same thing, whether I ad nauseum. I stopped doing interviews in 1985, I think, and I didn't start doing it until 2014 when I started making music again. But even back then, because you can, obviously, you can pull up any interview I ever did. I always said the same thing, because it is what it is.
Because it's the truth?
Yeah, because it's the truth.
It's easy to remember if it's the truth, right?
Yeah. I mean, I got into a thing once I was doing, and it's actually really comical. I got into it, and I did an interview with a guy named Nate Morris, in Detroit, and he had a dance show, and I was on there. My record company got me to go and promote one of the, I think when I was either doing Kelly's Eyes or one of those songs, but I went there to promote it. And as he was interviewing me, he was asking me about how I started, and I said, I started a band back in the day, and Prince was in it. He said, Prince? I said, yeah. Prince was in your band? I was like, yeah. And he said, oh, and he made a joke. He said, oh, Prince was in his band. I was like, Yeah, he said, well, who else was in your band? I said, well, my sister was in my band and Morris. I said, yeah, Morris Day? Morris Day? Oh, listen, he says Morris Day was in his band. So Morris Day was, I'm like, and now I'm insulted.
Right, of course.
So I'm like, I'm like, and so, when you ask about, taking credit, it's like, it's not about credit, but it just is what it is. It's like, I brought Morris into our band, period. And if anybody who knows anything about Prince, especially back then, he was a very quiet individual. He wouldn't, you couldn't shake, rattle, or roll 8, 9 words out of him if you didn't really know him well. And back then, obviously once you become, famous and you have, managers and bodyguards and all that, then you can be whatever you want. But back then there was no managers, there was no bodyguards.
You were kids.
Yeah.
You're kids.
And he was just a very, very, he was an introvert. He didn't talk to very many people. And he and I had a lot in common. But me, on the other hand, had a big mouth, and I was.
Wait a minute. Let me imagine that. Hold on. Okay, I got it.
and so, I was very much, into let's do this, let's do that. We got to do it. So I was that guy. So we complimented each other,
You brought him along for the ride because you were the instigator, it sounds like.
Yeah, I wouldn't quite say I brought him along for the ride. That's a bit of a stretch, but I think we complimented each other in terms of, me being more outgoing.
No, I just simply meant that as a friendship thing. That's what we do for each other, though.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, man, let's go. I didn't mean it any other way. No.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. In that context, absolutely. And in some ways, literally brought him along for the ride. And when I say ride, it's like, in more ways than one.
Is that right?
But yeah, I was just, I came from a different, I moved into a community that he was already involved in, established in, and I didn't know anybody. I literally was a stranger and in a strange land, when I first moved from where I came from into that community. And he was the first person that I really kind of got to know. And so, he kind of, showed me who was who. And it was interesting to get his breakdown and to get into his mind, because it was interesting to, because I never had that before, to see how somebody else dealt with other young people. I mean, my way of dealing with people back then was very, I'd have to say sort of Cro-Magnon. It's like if somebody said something to me, you hit them, with a blunt object, and he would try to break it down where, no, you don't want to hit him. He's got cousins and he's got about 18 brothers and sisters, and you're going to have to hit them too.
Get the lay of the land from him, huh?
So yeah, he kind of broke it down. So, but it was interesting to get to know things from that standpoint. But yeah, no. So so I was like, he said he had a cousin, I had a sister, and I saw William playing, so I brought him in, and Terry was our neighbor. He was literally lived next door to me. So and he just wanted to be in the band, and so yeah, that's how Grand Central got kind of cobbled together.